Good evening, I'm Manfredi. I'm here to recognize and honor Mike Westley. First of all, just a few acknowledgments and recognitions. Tammy Jo, good job on this. I think you highlighted it very nicely. And if you all just give me a few minutes, I'll finish reading it and I'll be prepared. Before I begin bragging about my friend Mike Westley, I'd like to recognize and thank Melissa Da Silva and her volunteers for the great evening they put together here. Also, I'd like to recognize wonderful, productive Debbie Bray for outstanding leadership of the Chamber all these years. How about a moment? It's really an honor for me to introduce Mike Westley as the Chamber's Lifetime Achievement Award winner. I'm very humbled on behalf of my spouse to recognize Mike and Patty for this honor tonight. My wife, Betty, is absent this evening and could not be a part of this because she's helping take care of our identical twin granddaughters born 3 weeks ago. I mention our spouses because for both Mike and myself, they are largely responsible for the wonderful support that they've given us. And so I salute you, Patty Westley, because you're just as much a part of the support as Mike is. Maybe more so. So Patty and I, congratulations from Betty and me. I also want to recognize Patty and Mike's 4 boys. Michael, Matthew, who's unable to be here this evening, Mark, and let me check this, Jeffrey. Wait a minute, we have the M's. We have Michael, father, name after father, Matthew and Mark, who takes care of the New Testament partially, and Jeffrey. What'd you do? Did you run out of M names? I mean, Manny, Mitchell, Martin, Manuel, Mo, Mort, Monty, Mickey. I mean, there's lots of good names. I'm still figuring that out. Maybe Michael can address that. But I mention them because this is, as we've seen this evening, this is really a family award. It's not just about one person. And truly, they raised 4 outstanding individuals. But I think when Jeffrey left the house, the youngest, Patty must have said, "Can I now get the furniture?" 4 boys. Now Betty and I raised 4 children. But can you imagine 4 boys, the patience that must have taken? And as I said, they've developed into outstanding young men. But Jeffrey, let's face it, he's out there with this name, this J name, when it should have been an M name. So Patty's seen this, that he was not developing as well as he should have because he felt inferior. So she wisely introduced him into Mrs. Betty Manfredi's 1st grade class. From then on, the sky was the limit. So you see, I'm not saying that he's better than the other boys, but if you read the polls, it's stated. These are fine young men, and while we recognize Mike and Patty as distinguished citizens, and this has been a theme this evening as well, I want to recognize them as distinguished parents, and that's a Lifetime Achievement Award that I really admire. To round out the family, there's 4 grandchildren, some are here today, and a 5th on the way. That's exciting. Did I mention identical twin? Melissa, do you have the slides for my twin? Oh, okay, we don't have time tonight. After the show, I'll show you my 3. Well, 2 and then the mother. Mike Westley is truly an American success story. In 1967, his family drove out from Buffalo, New York to sunny Pasadena, California, with not much more than the car, the trailer, and their suitcases. They weren't exactly the Joad family, but they weren't far from it. Mike attended community college for a few years in the great community college system in California, and then, paying his own way, transferred to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Now, Mike didn't finish college then. You have to understand this was the late 60s and 70s, and you had to be there, if you remember it, to realize it. But more importantly, and a greater achievement, Mike convinced Patty to fall in love with him. And that led Mike and Patty to Madera. Now, why is that? Patty had the job, okay? She was hired as a teacher for Madera. And we said earlier, behind every great man, well, in this case, as in so many cases, the lady was the leader. So good job in getting to Madera, because not only did this benefit the Westleys, even more so, it benefited the community of Madera. Initially, Mike toiled as a machinist for 17 years, most notably for Moosh's Pump. And at this time, he renewed his education at Fresno City College and taking machine shop classes. In 1998, a really significant situation happened for Mike. He was hired by FMC, now JBT. And I say this is notable because this is just an outstanding company in Madera, teaming up with an outstanding, at that time, young man. And the importance of companies like JBT, FMC, allowing and encouraging folks like Mike to become volunteers and leaders is oh so important to the value and civic nature of the community. He had a series of management. He started as a machinist and worked his way up through the management ladder, and now is in charge of purchasing. But specifically this evening, we don't hire Mike for the job that he was hired to do. We're honoring him for the job that he volunteered for, and that's volunteer and community leader. Now, I'm going to credit myself, because I deserve the credit, for getting Mike involved in, no, this is historically correct. You know. Check the National Enquirer. I actually tricked Michael into applying for a position on the City Planning Commission. And he hadn't had really any experience, and no one knew him because he hadn't lived here the requisite 15 years in Madera. So I circled him with fire. Now, the problem was, at that time, is the city council was made up of some very good old boys. I was a city staff member, and I'd gone to school with their children. I figured, though, and their habit of selecting people was just to say, okay, you're my friend, it's my turn, I'll name you, etc. But the law in California said you had to advertise, you had to announce it, and you had to go through a process. Imagine that, rather than just picking your friends. So I talked Mike into applying. Mike doesn't know this. I never thought he would get it. No, seriously, you gotta try a few times. You just don't always get the first job. You gotta try and try again. You don't always make the first team the first time. So I figured that Mike would try, then he'd get sort of anxious about it and say, well, they should have picked me, they didn't pick me. I was there that evening. I wasn't involved in the process. Mike and I looked at each other. He was the last one to be interviewed. And I could both say, that we were going to say to each other, but didn't say it, you're not going to get this. But lo and behold, they selected him. And they selected him not because he was somebody's friend or relative, but because he was the most prepared. And that was, the bug bit Mike. He got the illness, disease of volunteerism and community leadership. And from that time on, it's been Madera's benefit, it's been Mike's benefit, and it's been his family's benefit. There are too many volunteer groups and leadership groups to mention, but an interesting range is volunteer firefighter, church choir member, master gardener. You're the Renaissance man, Mike. That's cool. While there are too many to mention, some of the most noteworthy ones, and the list is long, so I'll read them fastly. Little League and Youth Soccer Boards, City of Madera Planning Commission and Chairperson, our own Madera District Chamber of Commerce, Madera Economic Development Commission Board and Chairperson, Madera Unified School District Trustee and President. And then there was work-related situations and his manufacturing experience with several educational committees at the high school and our own community college. As a testimony to Mike's patience and fortitude, rearing 4 boys, working full-time, and becoming an active community member and leader, Mike decided to finish college. In 1989, he earned a degree at Fresno State Industrial Technology. Not an easy journey. Father, spouse, employee, volunteer in his late 30s, and back to college. Pretty impressive. It was about 27 years ago when there was a surprise graduation party for Mike that his friends Dennis and Ellis Battarini and Patty threw at the Westley home. This was a grand evening, and I was very impressed. I was impressed because I didn't know Mike had gone back to college. He never mentioned it, he never complained about it. He just did it. His schedule was crazy. So years later, as an honor to Mike, I got a haircut just like Mike's. And while I'm not quite there, I want to be like Mike. I'm still working on it. The fortitude and sacrifice of the gentleman and the family. That's what is the character of this individual, because it does pass on to the family, which has been a great theme for this evening. I hope, Mike, that you're edging towards a retirement for your first career. But I don't want you to retire in your second career as a community leader and volunteer. Certainly, I am very proud to be a small part in honoring and introducing you to Mike Westley, Chamber Lifetime Achievement Award nominee. So there are
Ron actually got it right. When we came to Madera, it's because my wife had a job here and I didn't. And I got a job, actually my first job was a welder's helper, and went into machining from that, went to Fresno City. But when I moved here, I'm not a heat person. I was born and raised in Buffalo. I came over here from San Luis Obispo, and I'm stuck in the valley, but we had friends here, so we were going to stay for a couple of years, and I was heading out. And I think I heard that, I think I heard Jim say that, the same thing. But in that time, we started having a family, and we grew roots almost instantly. I remember the first year that I was in Madera, I went into the Chesapeake stationery store to buy something, and it was my first experience with Madera culture. And I remember at the cash register, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, how's that? I could hear myself. I thought that was okay. So I got to the cash register, and Paula was talking to me and wanted to know who I was, and then she started asking me a lot of questions, and I thought, well, this is kind of weird. I'm just buying a sheet of paper or something. But she was asking me about family and where I was and where I live, and it was interesting because now in retrospect, that was Madera. Madera knew everybody. They knew, as they met people, they put people together in a sort of a family affair. And I think Madera still, even though we've gone from 15,000 to, I think, close to 60,000, there's still a lot of that here, and it's really wonderful. It's a good feeling. This has been such a wonderful place to raise a family. You know, Ron was talking about the journey, all of us being honored here tonight, and how it's not just a single person's path that we're walking. We're walking with our support system, and of course our greatest support system is our spouses. At least I think so. At least for me it has been. And that journey going back to school, for instance, we have 4 sons. I leave home at 7 in the morning. I go to school at Fresno State. I go to work at a swing shift in a machine shop out by the Fresno airport, and I get home about 12:30. And I did that for a little over 3 years. But that was tough for me, but it had to be a lot tougher for my wife, because we had 4 little guys at home, and they were involved in sports, and she got involved with everything they did and kept it going, and she'd fill me in on what happened that day as I was driving home, and I'd have tears running down my eyes because I missed them. And that, excuse me, and that was really hard. And what's interesting is this whole process of being a Lifetime Achievement Award winner. I think when Bobby first called me, and I said, oh, come on, Bobby, really? It was just a day-to-day thing, just like everybody else. We live our lives doing what we think is the right thing to do, and it's just the most wonderful thing to find out that people appreciated it. And the retrospect, as I look back at these things, I relive a lot of it, and it's a good thing. It shows me all the blessings that I have in my life, not just with my family, but with all the people that are sitting here. This has been so much fun because I've seen a lot of people here tonight that were a very important part of the success that you are honoring me for. And I haven't seen them in a while because as we go through life, we move on and we do the things that we do. And so this is just a wonderful experience, you know. And as I look back and I say, you know, all these great blessings I have and life couldn't get any better, and then this happens. And I thank you all for it. Thank you again.